Let's get into it. This is AdBits with Alex Grossman, supported by Green Desert, UK-based representation for trusted service production partners. That's 2.0 Film across Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Italy, and Austria. Grandma across Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And Tickle Film in Spain. My guest today started as a runner, not a nice mid-sized production company with a decent EP looking out for him, at Pulse Films and Stink Films, two of the sharpest, most competitive houses in London. He worked his way up through production, crossed over into sales, and ended up running the commercial operation at MJZ, one of the most awarded production companies in the world, for 6 years. He now heads up new business at Prodco. Toby Tobin, welcome to AdBits. These are some opening questions we'll go through now. The Absolute and Tabasco campaign just picked up gold and silver at the Clios. Congratulations. What does a win like that actually feel like when it lands?
I mean, it's always, the Clios are brilliant awards, and it's always great to kind of get recognition. I think for a company in the age that we are, we've just hit year 3 here at Prodco. These are like our firsts, so it's a brilliant kind of pat on the back for all the hard work that we do. And it's not just the director, and it's not just the production company, it's all the partners, the agencies who write the ideas as well, down to the runners where we all started, who kind of help you on those campaigns. But they're really, I think they're really important for the people to kind of show us why we do what we do. It's not the be all and end all. It's a business at the end of the day, and we have mouths to feed, and that's really important. But to know that the work cut through is just nice to know that kind of people have seen it, recognize it, and hopefully it will live on a little bit longer than just it's kind of airtime bought media. And that's hopefully what the awards can kind of give that. Yeah.
Excellent. And that's so true. I do think I completely agree with you. I think all of the awards things, they seem superfluous a lot of the time, and you can get a bit overwhelmed by them. There's a lot going on. But I think it is really important, and it does help. It helps everyone, both the work you're doing, both everyone in-house being acknowledged for the work, because you never see what's going on behind the scenes in a production house, as we were just sort of touching on just before we had started. And it's just it's good, isn't it? It makes you feel good, and let's be honest, it's a competitive. I remember being production side, and my competitive spirit it helps you. It helps. It's good.
Yeah. Do you know what? I like seeing work being really well awarded that we've pitched on and lost, because it ultimately means that the agency made the correct decision with their director. And for the industry to kind of persist and to keep operating at a really high level, and to kind of keep the clients invested in making good and awarding well awarded work, we need the work to be successful, whether it's us or our competitors. These decisions need to be right, because then the clients go, I trust my agency, I trust my partners, and get the jobs. And the agencies listen to the clients listen to their agencies, and it's really important. So these are good decisions, kind of whether it goes your way or not. Obviously you'd like it to go yours, but equally, I mean, I don't think I've ever been more proud of winning awards than when I was properly starting out in the industry. I remember, I think everybody remembers the first awards that they were invited to, and they felt like, oh, am I allowed? Oh, it's a dinner. I have to wear a suit. This is amazing. And the kind of glitz and glamour can fade after the years, and we can all become a bit more cynical. But I don't know, just imagine that runner or that PA or whoever it is finding out that piece of work that they worked on and toiled over won a gold. I mean, it's amazing for the directors, but everybody involved kind of deserves that praise. And it's a good thing ultimately.
I'm glad. So moving on from there, you started as a runner at Pulse and Stink. What did that actually teach you that you couldn't have learned anywhere else? I just had Andrew Levine on the other week as well. I'm assuming you were there with him. He seems to have been there forever.
No, do you know what? And also, it was only a week in there, so that was in my kind of very brief freelance career that lasted. Yeah, so my definitely my kind of alumni-ness is at Pulse. I definitely came through there in the early days. I was only freelance for. I went freelance for a year, and I took on a 6-month gig because the freelance life wasn't for me. And it wasn't anything about fear. It was more just like I like looking to my left and looking to my right and going, these are my people, and this is where I'm going to kind of be for a bit. But no, I mean, Pulse taught me so much in the most complimentary way. It was a load of people, brilliantly talented people, giving things a go. And I was 16, 17 at that age, and I knew nothing, I remember having to dial an international phone number for the first time, and I didn't even know how to do that. It's like you're fresh from secondary school, not even college. It's that, but it taught me that kind of it's okay to not know the answer. And it's okay to ask, and you'll all figure it out together. And there was just, I mean, the best thing that anybody has ever given me in my career is patience. Like, it's just the fact that people let me stick around when I did something wrong, and they were like, he'll learn. And it was that. And those people at Pulse have all, that kind of class of at Pulse Films have all gone on to kind of create companies and direct. Like Sam Pilling was a researcher behind my reception desk, and it's people who now own their own companies and some of the biggest directors in the world. So it's like, it's such a nice kind of thing to be like, I was a part of that for a bit. And it definitely, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that kind of patience and understanding. And I probably wouldn't be here if that place wasn't as crazy as it was either. It was like, if it wasn't at its stage of life, then they probably wouldn't have had me around. And I was very lucky. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting what you said, and I was going to jump in, but then I wanted to let you just speak really about it, because I've always felt that the same. The freelance life is challenging, and I've had my own businesses, so I've done that in a way. But my favourite parts of my career, as it were definitely when you're in a place and it feels like a family, and it's exciting, and it's and also what you touched on is there's a certain moment in business, in companies, where there's a certain energy that's going on for whatever reason. You've got the right mix of people, and you're laughing every day.
Completely. And you don't know what's going to come, but you're all going to kind of take it. And it's, that's when those late nights are fine, right? That's when you're not rushing off. You're, and at that stage of your career also, you're the first one in and the last one out. And there's like that, unless that kind of chemistry's right, and that you're happy to be there and you're happy to kind of see the people making those sacrifices also and be willing to do that as well. That's where it teaches you that this is like, it's not cumbersome. It's not out of duty. It's out of like passion and wanting to do it. So yeah, I mean, they had some of the hardest working people there. So
it's really interesting on the point you touched as well. I really feel that you've felt it as well, that our industry has real wonderful moments, and I think in the last there seems to be a pervasive dreadish feel going on, and people seem to be, I think it comes through with the work as well. I've seen a lot of really good work luckily recently that's very strong and it's got a real point to it, and you're like I feel sometimes what I'm trying to get at is the confidence needs to return a lot of the time with what we do, what people would do, the people we're working at, the level we're working at, and the work as well. And I think it will come through there. I think it's the whole industry in a way. We need a lot more. We need to remind ourselves how great stuff can be. And look, it's advertising, obviously, so it's not the be all and end all. And I'm very aware of that. But there are, if we're talking about advertising in this instance, there is some great, amazing stuff that comes up. I just saw there's a couple of things I saw in the last week alone. I'm like, this is excellent. Okay, so that was a really lovely insight. I like that. When did you realize you were more interested in the business side than the production side?
Do you know what? It comes out of failures and mentorship, honestly. Like when I moved to Sunny, it was Sunny London, the company that was run by Helen Kenny and Frederick Bond. That was when, like,
an excellent company as well that has an amazing heritage, and people, you know, Frederick, you say these words like Frederick Bond, what a director, was, you know, peak advertising. I mean, one of the best directors of all time.
Yeah, and you know, like that was when kind of just the naivety went away and the innocence maybe fell away a bit, and it was like, right, fuck, this is how the real.
It's fine, you could do that. No one cares.
This is how the real adults play, and you know, that was God. I wasn't sure I was made out for it, because you just.
Did you feel that much of a transition, that you'd gone from like into an adult world?
I went from, and it was because, you know, Pulse at the time was doing a lot of music videos and booking its first ads, and I remember like 32 booking a Cronenberg ad, and literally like we were like willing to pop champagne and stuff like that. It was,
and rightly so,
brilliant.
It's a massive gig.
And then moving to, and I remember winning our first Arrow at Pulse, but then I remember going to Sunny, and there was like this vase in the corner with just overflowing with arrows. And I was like, oh my God, I've kind of changed leagues here a little bit. But again, they were so good to me and gave me such a production education that I would have been enviable of for anybody else to get. So I was very, very lucky. But I was PAing and, you know, like helping out in any way I could for production. And then we hired another PA, and he was and is a very dear friend of mine. And we had the kind of youthful competitiveness amongst each other. And I just kept day by day looking at this guy being like, he's so much better at this than I am. And like, I was proud of him for it. And I you know, I still love him to this day, and he's still way better at production than I am. But I just couldn't, I found that like I could do all of the tasks. They would just take me longer or take more of my brain. And then one day, I think some agency people came in for a meeting, and you know, you just kind of take on that role of hospitality, of host, and struck up a conversation. And then I saw someone else in the office kind of almost try and do the same thing. And I was like, what? That was a really weird chat you just had. Why did you do that? And he turned around to me and was just like, I don't know, I can't do what you do. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm not worse than him. I just have a different skill set. And the rep at the time was again a very dear friend, and she was, I think, kind of noticed it and noticed my interest and said that she'd take me along to sales meetings. And I think the naivety just really helped me be hopefully what came across as endearing, because I remember my first ever sales meeting that I was sat in on, so I was like not the lead at all, but it was with Ollie Calverley at VCCP.
Ollie, I spoke to him last week at one point. Yes, the famous Ollie Calverley. Wow. And he's still at VCCP.
Still at VCCP. And I was there, and I think I spoke to him for about 20 minutes about where he lives and Notting Hill Carnival, and not a jot was said about directors or work or anything. And I'll probably still apologize to him for that waste of time. But it just immediately made me feel comfortable that I was able to converse with these people and hopefully connect with these people. And then when you've got, then you just kind of, what you have to then learn is the director side of things, where it's the bigger picture conversation. But I think when you work at production companies for as long, in terms of stints, as I have, you really become a part of the furniture. These directors become your friends, your idols. They're more than just like your bosses as you kind of start off with. And you get to know their work so intently, but through osmosis, not through kind of studious study or desire to take it in. You just, you know their work, you know how they work. And when you've just got that kind of passion to see good people who you care about do good things, and you put yourself in rooms with the Ollie Calverleys of the world and the heads of agencies, you're almost not selling them. You're just talking to them about brilliant people and who they should, and why those brilliant people should continue to do brilliant things, but this time for them. And it just suddenly clicks that you're just talking about what you're passionate about, and you get little prompts because of the jobs we do in terms of a specific script coming up right now. So you have, okay, there's a case point that we need to solve, but the general conversation is just to go, there's hopefully so many good people that we come across, and we have problems to solve, so let's try and do that together. So it's sorry, to answer the question, it came from just being not as good as one of my best friends at production. So I was like, I found my own niche, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was so freeing to kind of not, there was a line that somebody said to me once, that like being good at something doesn't mean that thing you're good at is easy. And it's so freeing, because in my head I had this kind of mantra that hard work had to be hard, and it doesn't. People have brilliant skill sets, and they just need to kind of be utilized. So it was a really freeing kind of release, actually.
That's such a great observation. I think when you get into it, you just you don't fall at all. You find your way, don't you? You find your skill set, as you rightly put it. And I think also there's something very unusual about production companies. If you're in the right one doing the best work with amazing people around you, which you respect, there's a family feel, but there's like a very unusual energy that comes. I don't know if it's replicated in most other things. I mean, we are making advertising, can't make it too hard, but it doesn't feel like that when you're in when you're in those sorts of environments. They're so especially when you're younger, and even now, but especially when there's that energy going on. I don't want to keep using the same word, but there is something wonderful about it, especially when you're, and definitely coming through the ranks. It can be very exciting, all those meetings you're doing, and also when you're making some consequential work that everyone else is going to see.
Completely. And I was probably to my fault, and I won't blame my parents for this, but such a TV kid in the 90s, right? So like I took in all of this stuff. I was like subject number one in terms of capitalist propaganda. That like going to these production companies in the early days and being told like task number one, sit here and ingest the work that we have made so you know the type of company we are. I was hooked because I knew the work. It was like, oh my god, that Nike ad is like, I had a favorite ad before coming into the industry, but I never would have said I did. I never would have known I did, but you just ingested it. And then when I was like, getting shown photos on a football pitch in Rio with Ronaldinho and like Cafu, I was like, there is no job in the world that I want to do more than like be on that football pitch with those players. And it felt like a place to get there, sort of thing. And it was exciting.
Okay, so moving on from that, which I loved as well. This is going very well. I'm very pleased with this, with what you're saying. It reminds me of all the good feels.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6 years, at MJZ is a serious stint. When you're selling work at that level, also Apple briefs, Nike briefs, how much of it is the work doing the talking, and how much is it still a relationship game? You kind of touched on it with Ollie, where you're literally, people don't understand, you're going into clients, you just you're basically hanging out, you're updating each other's lives, and it's, you know,
Yeah.
sort of talking about around the work. It's the weirdest job in the world in a way where you're not allowed to sell.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's no one wants to be sold to, so it's incredibly kind of
There's a very English way, of course. It's a UK way of doing it. In the States, it's absolutely the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just tact. Some people want you to get to the point, and it's always it's again quite a freeing thing to be able to go to somebody, hey, you know why I'm calling. Shall I ask the ask, and we can do it that way. And it's very freeing to be able to do that. But no, I mean, at that MJZ level, it's brilliant because they've got such heritage, and those directors are so talented. I mean, to be directing some of the biggest commercials in the world before I was born is, what can you kind of tell these directors? But I think the way I looked at it was that, like, they weren't done and they wanted to stay at the top. And, we kept talking about these like times of changing sort of thing. And it was just like, can I help be a part of that? Like, can I help us span eras? I wasn't a part of the old, but I can be a part of the new. And, it's like some repositioning of people. Some people just stayed so current that it kind of worked for itself, and that's a testament to them as well. But it was, it was a new market. There was like, it was the cusp of people using like Gen Z terms. Like, they were now the consumers, and directors who were like, I'm the, I don't speak that language maybe. And it was, I don't know, helping bridge that gap. And I mean, they were so inspirational to see people work at that level and with that gravitas, and just even being a fly on the wall to some of those like creative development meetings and calls. You just saw how the experience kind of benefited them, like how brilliantly quick thinking they were, how they just had this, like, if you look at a career as like a toolbox that you just accumulate more and more tools over the years, they just had the biggest ones. And it was just brilliant to see how they attacked problems and solved things and challenged people as well, because I think they had the gravitas in their experience to be able to say, this is the right way to do it. And it spoke for itself in terms of the awards that came with it. But equally, I think it's one of the hardest jobs in the world to kind of to manage that level of talent and to provide for it and to facilitate it. So, hats off to the producers and to the ownerships there and stuff like that, to be able to like keep these incredibly talented but hungry mouths like happy and satisfied. Because it's like, you can have the best directors in the world, but if they're not fulfilling their potential still, is incredibly difficult. And it's it's a really tough job, but so fulfilling to be able to be a part of like that top end of the industry, where you are like, you're really trying to create stuff that stands the test of time, because your standards are work that already has. So it's
well, look, on that point, what actually separates a director who's brilliant to work with from one who's brilliant but makes everyone's life harder? For me, I've noticed there's been a distinct change. The best directors I've ever worked with, who've done the biggest work and all of those things, have definitely, the ones who stand the test of time at least, and this, I've spoken to people many times, are the best ones who can communicate well and you want to work with.
I mean,
but what about you? What would you say?
Look, I've always said that, and I always find directors really funny, because it's one job that I've never desired to do myself.
I agree. It's a lonely task. It can be lonely.
But what I find fascinating is how they see the world and how their brains work. And, you know, what would happen if you give this director this script? Or then that always fascinates me. And to kind of try and do the unconventional and push them to do something new. I think I don't love even when a script comes in and people ask me for suggestions, I don't love the script being something that I feel like our director has done this before, so here's them having done this before, but we could do it for you. So
which by the way is the challenge, because the agencies and clients want to see something the same that you've done before. People don't appreciate that. They literally are like, we saw this, we've made something similar to this, there's that. The opportunity of getting in at someone like, as you're suggesting, is let's try someone who hasn't done this, is exceptionally challenging.
Well, it's like, where did the reference come from? And are we referencing something, or are we trying to be the reference? And it's, you know, now more than ever, I think it is be the reference. But in terms of like lovely to work with directors and quote unquote difficult directors, I don't think there's a distinction between it. I mean, a set and a project is such a kind of ecosystem that requires friction, and it requires cooperation, and it has to have all of these elements to be truly special. Does that kind of negate the ability to be polite and pleasant and you know, have a good heart and be a nice person? Absolutely not. But equally, friction doesn't mean that you're not any of those things either. Some of the best jobs that will stand the test of time in my kind of living memory that I've worked on have been some of the hardest. And it's because people challenged each other and pushed each other. But I think at the end of the day, it was for the right reasons. And I think everybody should, I would pride myself on doing the right things for the right people and trusting that their hearts are in good places, and that this is the kind of real reason why we do it, is because we're trying to do it for the betterment of everyone. You know, it's like this job that we do that might be really difficult, that might be causing so much friction, this is going to get us our next job. This is our next this is like at that apex when you're doing that job, this is the fork in the road of where your career is going. And that's how important it is. You know, this is people's livelihoods. If we nail this, then, you know, we get the opportunity to do it again. And it's important. So I think if a director's difficult, and some of the like directors with the biggest kind of baddest reputations, I don't know why, but I've always quite loved them when I've met them and when I've worked with them, and thoroughly enjoyed it and would do it a million times again. So I don't think it's about being lovely to work with or being challenging. I think if you are inherently a good person, you can be spiky, but equally have the context and back up your words, and, you know, give reasons to it. And I always say the kind of biggest talent that I've ever witnessed in directors isn't their ability to challenge people, it's their ability to bring people with them and say, this is what I think is best, and have that be bought into and go, okay, yeah, let's do that. Because I mean, to get people to just kind of be on side with your riskier moves and stuff like that, like that's such an enviable talent that I think is kind of gold dust, really.
Yeah, so really, yeah, I think this is great. I totally agree. Okay, you've had to keep directors' spirits up through pitches they didn't win. What's that relationship actually like? Being the person who has to deliver that news and then get back up for the next one. What does new business actually look like in a market? Yeah, sorry, I was reading into the next question, but so let's talk about that bit first.
I mean, being honest, I think, is the start and the end of it, because the moment you kind of don't do the smoke and mirrors, you don't play games with directors. You just kind of, you will always be honest in the good times and the bad. I think gives you a lot of freedom to be able to kind of have hard conversations because they know you're being truthful to them and it's not a tactic or a game to be played. And look, I always think it's a privilege to be on a pitch. There's stages of winning, right? And you're selected as one of 3 when you get on a pitch. Like, you've done a lot of work to get that director on the pitch. That director's done a back catalogue of work that's represented why they've been selected over God knows how many other reels that they looked at. It's like, that's a win in itself. I mean, winning the work is where is the be all and end all, but you shouldn't kind of overlook the amount of people you've beat out to get to the pitch stage. It's really subjective at the pitch stage. There's so much nuance. It's a really tricky relationship because I've been with directors where you've been on multiple losses and it's the flip-flopping of you've lost one pitch because you changed it too much, then you've lost the second pitch because you didn't change it enough, and all of that stuff, which can really breed insecurity. And I think the kind of coaching element that I try to kind of talk to all of the directors about is, did you feel like you did the right thing? Like, regardless of the feedback, did you feel like you did the right thing on that? Then that loss is fine because it was meant to be. And the moment you kind of start to chase the win over what you think is the right way to do this job, you're going to lose yourself. And then you'll start losing pitches you would have won if you had kind of stayed true to your vision. Like, these are immensely talented visionaries that we're working with, and you're being selected to have a point of view on a piece of creative work. So have a point of view. And if that loses you jobs, so be it. But
otherwise you don't have you're losing your personality.
Completely. So I think if you can, I'd always recommend people, die on their own sword. Let's be bold. Let's try and kind of upset the apple cart. And I mean, I've been very lucky to be very rarely working kind of with those sorts of jobbing directors. I've been working with either directors of kind of incredibly high stature, which means that the pitches are on an incredibly high level and need to be won by being avant-garde and just being kind of really out there. Or I've been working with like really up and coming directors who have kind of become the next leading talents of the industry. And equally, that takes as much radical thinking to win those pitches and stand out of the crowd. So very rarely has my advice on winning and losing ever been play it safe. It's been, let's swing for the fence and try and win it. And if we win it, we'll make something brilliant, and that will kind of set the tone for your own career. I think it's you can learn from losses, but I don't think you should kind of wear them too much. I think unless you feel like you didn't do yourself justice, then okay, cool. We should talk about a process and how we can kind of support you better in that kind of stage. But if you feel proud of what you kind of put forward, then I don't see the reason to kind of dwell too long on the losses. It's like frequency is also a massive healer in terms of winning and losing jobs. Like, if you're just straight into the next one, brush yourself down and have a kind of a chance to redeem, then it's more the better. The moment you're in those long kind of long pitches where you're not sure where the next job's coming from is the trickier part. But it becomes a morale issue there, and then you have to still care for people as people, so you just have to kind of make sure that people are okay and that they haven't taken it too hard. It's like it becomes more of a human thing than I think an analytical thing on the creative side.
Okay. And moving to something more, not moving away from directors now, what does new business actually look like in a market where everybody already knows everyone? I find that quite interesting because
Yeah.
a lot of us do know each other. But how does it? Yeah, what does it look like now? I think you touched on it earlier with, catching up with people and seeing what's going on and asking whether, you ask the question first sometimes, or they'll tell you hopefully through the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, look, friendships do mean a lot because it ups the ante in terms of you have nowhere to hide when you get a project from a friend, and it's that level of trust. But I think anybody giving you any job is a level of trust that like requires your full attention and requires your full kind of bandwidth. And I think we do know each other, but I think people would be surprised at how much kind of surface level chat can be, to how much kind of how many specialists I think that we have in this industry. And I know it, that the more you talk to somebody, the more you kind of get that one-on-one time, and the more you get into them, how much they can still surprise you. And I think it's not about having all of the answers. I think it's about saying that like you have the ability to care about what somebody's going to give you. So, like you can go back to the same agency a million times and you can throw new directors at them, you can throw different directors at them. But I think sometimes it's like staying true to what do you think is the best solve for this problem, and really justifying kind of why you're making the suggestions you're making. It's not, well, this director's available. And these relationship managements, I think a lot of it comes from when somebody at an agency can see how much you care and how much effort you've put into this thing that they're sending you. It really translates, because it's a completely different conversation to say, I have this director who I think would be great, and then I've read your script and there's a really interesting part here, and I was just like, that really caught me, and that led me to think, what about this director who's just, I know you would never have chosen them, but what would happen if we mix these two chemicals together? Could it be something exciting? And I think when people see you trying to kind of push and do something a bit different, there is an intrigue there that comes back. And I think then you just build up this trust of not always necessarily delivering, but always trying. And I think your kind of regular partners and the new people you meet will see the kind of dedication you have to a task at hand, and ultimately you just need to be in the game and have your hat in the ring in terms of these pitches and in these bids. So like, knowledge is so key, knowing that a piece of work is happening, and maybe being a tastemaker to be asked what you think is half the battle sometimes. And then really just to kind of treat that with the respect it deserves, to be able to say, I might not be right, but I'll definitely have an opinion, and I will have thought it through. I think it's really important.
I think it's the most important in a way, because then people will call you, especially with the jobs that you really want to be doing, because they're normally the most challenging. And they want to hear your opinion on it. Whereas if you're just someone who's just like, here's a load of directors who, as you mentioned, are available as an example, it's a completely different thing. I've also been fascinated with going through this process of putting a podcast together, is spending time with people and learning more about their backgrounds.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I have to be honest, one of the things on my personal level, just learning to listen more.
Yeah.
When you're going in, and in the past, when when you're going in, trying to get work for directors or just having the chat, it's listening a lot more, I think, is the key for everything.
Yeah.
Never mind just work.
It's hard,
but, holding your mouth and listening to what they are saying. Rather, I found it fascinating and just learning more about people, because there is the industry, we do know lots of people, but and you think you know them well because you see them more often than most of your friends and family. In certain instances, but it's but you don't, and it's been really interesting just spending time with people to find out more.
The listening thing is especially hard with like the ADHD brain going at you, going, I have finished your sentence 4 times in my head before you've got there. But it's but also I think it's that kind of happy to be imperfect, I think, is so important. Like it frees up a conversation to open it up for honesty. And also I think it's a two-way street. I think, yes, we maintain these relationships and we are in service of these agencies to kind of try and get these jobs to come over to us, but also communicate to them what you want and what your aims and ambitions are, because there's a whole relationship that you've built up in your head of what you would like the relationship between, this agency or this client and you, your production company, and your directors. Tell them, you could be wrong, and they could say, I think that's more where we were and we're heading more in this direction with this account or something like that. Okay, that gives us an opportunity to pivot, but like, say things out loud. And do that. I think it's nice for it to not feel like it's always just one way. We're here to help each other out.
What's it actually like making work right now? Budgets, timelines, the pressure on everyone involved. You see it all from where you sit. What's the honest picture?
I mean, look, it's getting tougher, but the problems have always been here. I think it's something I touched on earlier. It's the trust and the ability to and permission to be able to solve that problem. It's not saying I need more time or I need more money. It's having that blessing that the agency feel like that you've got their best interests at heart. So it's like, okay, this is the best way to attack what you have. And like leaning on the expertise. I mean, here alone at Prodco, I mean, the producers and the EPs that are attached to jobs are so experienced, but equally so adaptable to solve these problems. It is often we're just asking for permission to be able to try and do it. And a lot of that comes through kind of communication. I mean, look, budgets are changing, but equally there's some huge budgets out there, so it's amazing. But like even the mediums are changing, some formats are getting shorter, some formats are moving into like branded entertainment. We are sometimes squeezed on time. It's like these problems have always been there. I think it's just the ability to solve them up against kind of just expectation and realities is the tricky kind of balance. It's like, I think when an agency can kind of see the flaws in what they're asking for and can be realistic with the production company about that, then I think the conversation's already halfway there. Saying an amount of money that you have for X creative on the table and knowing how far a disparity there is before the director gets on board, of just knowing that like what's on the page there is a 2-day shoot and the money is a 1-day shoot wherever you go. As long as there's an acknowledgement that like this is what I have to deal with at the moment, and a problem shared is a problem halved, then you're halfway there to kind of being able to have realistic conversations. It's when that hasn't really kind of just been outed at the very beginning that it becomes a bit of a song and dance, and I think that's where frustration can lie. But if people go, look, I know this is an ask, but we're open to, I don't know, providing an opportunity for a younger director, then suddenly the production company's view on that thing is it's an opportunity rather than a hindrance of a project that's not well funded enough or has enough time. It's an opportunity for a young director to get a springboard or if they say, or if, you know, if the creative is especially good, but it's like, these are the parameters we have to work in, it's like, well, that's what we have to protect, is that creative, because it is brilliant and it deserves to be told. But again, I think as long as there's that open dialogue and you can kind of have a back and forth, and again, a trust of just going, this is what I have, like, here's all of our little pockets of money, and what can we utilize in which ways. It's like, I'd hate for the kind of the ship to roll downhill and it just be a problem that gets kicked on and kicked on, because, you know, I have to respect the people who facilitate the ability to, like, for us to make this great work and to keep it to that standard. But I think, yeah, it's getting harder, but that's just because the problems are changing at a more rapid pace. It's like production's never been easy, as long as I've been in it anyway. Like we are problem solvers. This is the job. You're with creators and problem solvers, and, you know, half of these directors, if they weren't being paid to direct, would still be going out there and making films for themselves. It's what they love. So we have the ability to solve these problems and to deliver something that's amazing, but just maybe the framework is an expectation needs to be discussed up front. Because if you truly let people create, it's the same with creative teams in agencies. It's like they're having to write into these budgets as well. And it's like, if there was the trust that they will create something brilliant, then equally there's a trust that the director can do that too. The parameters are just the parameters. I think we just need to just be a bit more aware and self-aware and open about what the challenges are, rather than just going, well, it's a job and it's here, so someone's got to do it. Because that's where it becomes like the race to the bottom, really.
It's really interesting. Right. Moving on from that, we've now got a quick fire round. So just as you know, if you get stuck on anything, because it's easy for me to shout these things out, but it's very, you sometimes get hit and you're like, I'm actually not sure. We just say move on and we will. Okay. Mm-hmm. First job on a shoot, what were you doing?
Trying to work out how a cafetiere works.
Hardest sell you've ever had to make?
Oh, I would say an advert that was made 20 years ago that they wanted to recreate, offering them the same director who directed it 20 years ago to do that job, believe it or not, was an incredibly hard sell to do a job for this, to shoot the same job as it was 20 years later for a quarter of the budget. It was an incredibly hard sell.
One thing production companies consistently get wrong about new business?
I would say that's interesting. I think the speed, to be honest. I think consistent and reliable relationships are never happen quickly. And I think we're all guilty of it. We all want to get out of the blocks very quickly. And we've all started new jobs where we've opened our little black books and it's immediately gone on fire because you've got all of this new stuff and it's brilliant and shiny. And it's like, yes, that is brilliant, but it's the consistency that's going to keep everybody going. It's the consistency that that we're after, I think. So I think it's the maybe the quick wins in sales are sometimes not as valuable as the long-standing kind of trust and relationships.
Good answer. Agency, creative, or production company EP, who's harder to read?
Agency, creative.
The Absolute Tabasco post said no AI. Is that a principle or a practical call?
I think at this current stage, it's a principle based off of practicality. I think where this technology is right now, I don't think it's being utilized in a good, a healthy, or a desirable way. I think it can settle in and find its place within this industry, and then that could be an incredibly exciting future. I think that's way off at the moment. So I think at this stage, having the opportunity that we did to have helicopters, miniatures on a real location was a million times the right decision.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of miniatures. I think we lose so much when we go full digital. I always think that. MJZ or Prodco, where did you learn more?
Prodco. It was
yeah. Go on.
No, it was a place that I said I would reset my work-life balance coming to Prodco after a big stint at MJZ, and I've never worked harder. I've never learned faster, and I've never enjoyed it more. So it's equally as a good thing as well.
That's wonderful. What's a campaign from the last 2 years that you wish you'd been involved in?
Ooh. Do you know what? I loved the first pieces of work that Uncommon did for JD Sports.
Okay.
Just being kind of a Londoner and probably that kid who it was aimed at, but 15 years later, it was brilliant.
Runner Toby, what would he make of where you've ended up?
I think he'd ask, what does that mean? What do you actually do? He'd have no clue, but I think he'd be excited.
And just one of the closing questions now is, if someone's starting out as a runner today, same position you were in, what's the one thing you'd actually tell them?
Be patient and stick around. The amount of learning that I think comes from being in the room, rather than I've been sat down and I've been taught and I've been tutored, and it has all gone in some way, but the amount that I've learned from just osmosis of being in the room, just observing, is invaluable. So just keep turning up, and you'd be so surprised what you pick up along the way. You just have to keep turning up.
Toby, thank you. This has been a genuinely good conversation. Really appreciate you coming on. So many things you said in this conversation have really, as I said before, all the good feels. You reminded me of so many wonderful things. This is Ad Bits with Alex Grossman, supported by my company, Green Desert. I represent 2.0 Film, Grandma, and Tickle Film in the UK market. They're all fantastic service companies. So if you've got any bids, give me or they a call. If you enjoyed this one, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you on the next one.